Well, listeners, we are going to continue our look at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival right now because one of the other shows that we are so excited about this year is Sarah Maree Cameron's debut show called One Womb Please. And we thought, look, to find out a little bit more about this show, we would actually get Sarah Maree on the phone today. So welcome to the program, Sarah Maree.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Sarah Maree, this show is such a personal show for you. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how this show has all come together.
Yeah, so the show will quickly run people through the last 15 years of my life, I guess. It'll bring them up to speed with when I had cervical cancer and being diagnosed with endometriosis, and then other fertility and piping issues, as I refer to them, throughout the show, and where my fiance and I are now at, which is we're hoping to find a surrogate to help us start a family. So we went through the IVF process as well, and that is all encapsulated in a 1-hour comedy show, which I understand doesn't sound like it would be funny, but as soon as I say that to anybody who has been through a similar journey, has been down maybe one or all of those paths, like my fiance and I, they get it, because there are some really funny things that happen along the way, and also you really have to use humour along the way to help you as a coping mechanism.
Definitely, and there's a lot of different things that happen during personal times like that is humorous as well. I know Michael Schaefer has talked a lot about his battle with testicular cancer during his shows, and some of the jokes he makes about it are so funny. Did you find that when you sat down to work on this show that it was easy to kind of write about it, or did you find because it was personal it was a little bit harder?
Yeah, I never actually sat down to write this show, weirdly enough. How it all actually started was during Cervical Cancer Awareness Month, I just gave myself a challenge to make a joke that would then hopefully leave people wanting to make sure that either they themselves, if they had to go and have cervical screenings, or they knew people that did, it would encourage them to have those conversations to make sure that they were up to date. So that was just a little challenge that I gave myself over a year ago now to write this one little joke. And during one of the sets that I was doing in the November of that year, I just flipped it in and it landed really well. And I had a couple of people come up to me and they just started laughing about the joke that I had made. And they loved it. They said, "Oh, do you have any more material like this?" And I went, "Oh, I could flesh that joke out a little bit more." And so then that became its own bit in a show. It didn't really go anywhere else. It was just this sort of 10-minute bit that I'd created. And then off the back of conversations, the other people were saying, "Oh, what if you added this? And have you done anything about endo? And have you spoken about IVF?" And I'd made a couple of jokes while I was doing IVF, while I was on stage, and they were all going quite well. And that was just sort of riffing off the crowd, if you will. And it wasn't until much later that I realised that this could all be a show. But even then I doubted myself because I just wasn't sure if anybody would want to come and see a show like that. So I just started putting the feelers out there and having conversations with other comedians and other friends and other people who had endo or had cervical cancer or precancerous cells, so had gone through a very similar stage. And then that gave me the confidence to actually go, no, this is a show and I'm going to do it.
Yeah. There'll be a lot of laughs in your show, but do you feel also that your show might educate people too about endometriosis and also personal things like that?
Oh, absolutely. When I started tying it all together and sewing all the little bits and pieces together, I made sure of it, David. Let me tell you, I wanted to make sure that people knew a little bit more.
Yep.
That they knew a little bit more about cervical cancer and the importance of those people who need to have their screenings and why they need to ensure that they're on top of it. And in places like Melbourne, where we were in and out of lockdown so long, people completely fell out of step with the appointments and their routine that they would need to have, and not just for cervical cancer, but for anything, right? As we get older, there are just certain checks that we all need to do to make sure that we are healthy.
Yep.
And we got out of step with all of those things. So the show is going to hopefully not just remind people to have their cervical screening, but do all their screenings, do all the necessary things that they need to do. Just like Michael Schaefer encourages people to ensure that they are checking, because, you know, the demographic of people who are being diagnosed with testicular cancer, it's much younger than what you would think.
Yep.
So, you know, Michael talks about that. There's another incredible comedian called Nick Capper. He's got his show in the Melbourne International Comedy Festival talking about his experience with testicular cancer as well. So, you know, if you're going to come to any one of our shows, we're hopefully going to be reminding people to look after themselves and get back in step with all the checks that they need to do. With things like endometriosis, I really want people to learn more about it. In Australia, we've got 1 in 9 endo sufferers. We have a really high prevalence of it in Australia, I think, as a diagnostics as well. Then I want people to understand that there is no such thing as good period pain. It's just not normal to be going through it over and over and over again. So those little things are woven through, and then I weave things through about IVF and what that journey might be like for a heterosexual or a homosexual couple, and then with surrogacy too. I think you will walk away from the show having enjoyed a fantastic hour. You will laugh, I promise you. There will be plenty of laughs. But I also know that you're going to walk away educated with just, you know, little tidbits along the way that'll make you, hopefully, want to go out and learn some more. Maybe jump on the internet and go, oh, maybe I should find out some more about this. And, you know, who knows? It might be really applicable to the people who were sitting in the audience that night. And they may go away going, wow, I actually really need to go to a doctor, or I feel a lot better about my IVF journey, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And it could save someone's life as well. I'm a walking proof that sometimes for cancer can get spotted in really weird ways. I did a football injury when I was playing football and got tested to, or x-rayed to check and see if I had a broken rib after a collision on the field. And the doctor came back into the room and said, I've got good news and bad news. The good news is you don't have broken ribs, but the bad news is I think we've detected something that we need to check out. And it turned out that I had a form of bone cancer on my ribs. So, and that would not have got found if I hadn't have gone to the doctor for something else. So, yeah.
How lucky are you to have had that accident, though? You
Exactly.
know, like, isn't it funny how it works that way? And I feel the exact same way about my endometriosis diagnosis, which I talk about in the show, that if I wasn't diagnosed with cervical cancer, I wouldn't have been diagnosed with endo so early, because it takes closer to a decade to be diagnosed, unfortunately. So it's funny how the world works in those ways, and we really do need to look after ourselves, and that's one thing that I'm hoping comes across in the show. But I also just want to normalise these conversations, because a lot of people hide them, and that's okay. If you don't feel comfortable talking about it, I completely understand, particularly with IVF. When my fiancé and I were going through it, we had so many people come out of the woodwork and talk to us about their time during IVF, and if they were successful or if they weren't successful, or if they froze their eggs or if they froze their sperm. We could not believe how many people in the circles around us had gone through it, and we had absolutely no idea. They had just never felt comfortable to talk to anybody about it. And I just really want to make people so comfortable in that room, and they're going to be so comfortable that they're going to be laughing about it. Yep. That is the point of this show.
Definitely. And this is your debut solo show as well. You've been part of course, the Comedy Festival before with improv shows, but this is your first solo show at the festival. How are you feeling? Are you feeling excited?
I am so excited. I'd wanted to do this show last year, and I just couldn't, unfortunately. There's a lot of finances involved when you're putting together a show. You know, you were, well, for someone like me, fully self-funded. You're paying for your own room fee, tech fee, paying for your advertising and your flyers that you've got to go and hand out in the street as well. So there's a lot of money that you need before you even start to put on a show. And I, unfortunately, just in and out of all the lockdowns that we had, I was not in a position to do that. So I finally get to do this show now, which I'm so excited about. I've been able to do rotation spots and jump on and share the stage with, say, like 3 or 4 other comics doing stand-up throughout the comedy festival. And as you say, I've travelled doing improv with the Improv Pit and done Perth Fringe and Adelaide Fringe. So, yeah, I feel like finally I get to do this show. It's been a long time coming.
Definitely. Well, we cannot wait. And for all the listeners out there, if you want to head along and see Sarah Maree's show, it's called One Womb Please, and it runs from the 11th of April to the 23rd of April at Cooper's Inn. You can grab all the ticket information off our website, or you can go to comedyfestival.com.au to find all the information and purchase tickets. Sarah Maree, what would you like to say to people out there who are thinking about heading along and checking out your show?
Just buy tickets, grab a group of people, come along. It doesn't matter if you've got kids or you don't have kids or you want kids. I promise you, this is a show for absolutely everybody to come and have a laugh.
Definitely. And once again, listeners, Sarah Maree's show is called One Womb Please. It runs from the 11th of April to the 23rd of April at Cooper's Inn, and you can grab tickets from comedyfestival.com.au. Sarah Maree, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and I can't wait to check out your show at this year's Comedy Festival.
Thank you so much for having me, and I hope that you are all well and good now yourself, David.
I am, yep. Nearly 7 years in remission now, so all good.
That is incredible.